Morning in Vellora did not arrive with sound. It unfolded. The mist lingered like memory, drifting between roofs, curling around lanterns, whispering across the square. And in that quiet hour before the marketplace woke, two people stepped into the day, neither knowing their paths were already written to cross again. Arman had spent the night sketching the streets of Vellora. Each line was a memory, not of the town but of the silence it carried. He wasn't drawing for art anymore. He was drawing to remember what still felt real. He paused, turned a page and froze. The next sheet, blank when he'd gone to bed, now held a faint outline. A hand-drawn feather, inked by someone else. It wasn't his work. The lines were too light, too graceful, almost like they'd appeared on their own. He brushed his thumb over the page. The ink smudged. Fresh. Someone had been in his room. Or maybe Vellora was playing its quiet tricks again. Across town, Lina was doing something she hadn't done in a year. Smiling. Not for anyone else. Just for herself. She watched an old woman pour steaming tea, heard a musician tune his sitar, and felt something loosen in her chest. Healing doesn't announce itself, she thought. It hides in the ordinary. But as she turned to leave, something on a nearby bench caught her eye. A small black sketchbook, half open, pages fluttering with the wind. She picked it up carefully, the pages cool to the touch. Inside she found sketches. Rooftops, bridges, a mountain skyline. And then her reflection, the same coat, the same tilt of her head, standing by the lake from yesterday. Her breath caught. She looked around. The artist was nowhere to be seen. It wasn't coincidence. Someone had seen her before she saw them. Someone who drew not what they looked at, but what they felt. He turned the corner, searching, panic hidden beneath calm eyes. She turned toward him, sketchbook in hand. Between them, the morning air shimmered. The wind carried a bell's soft chime, as if Vellora itself sighed in relief. Lina spoke first. "You left this behind," she said softly. Arman nodded, eyes fixed on the feather mark. "I didn't draw that," he whispered. And in that instant they both realized. Vellora wasn't just a town of whispers. It was a place that connected souls. Even through silence. The mist began to lift. Two strangers stood on the same street, holding the same story, still unfinished. And as the wind carried the feather from the sketchbook into the sky, the real story of Vellora had just begun. The second morning in Vellora arrived quietly, as if the town itself was deciding whether to reveal its secrets, or guard them a little longer. The wind moved differently today, not restless but observant, like it was listening. Lina walked slowly along the stone path near the old clock tower. Her footsteps measured, cautious, thoughtful. Her journal rested in her hands, pressed close to her chest, as if it carried something fragile, something newly awakened. She wasn't looking for anyone, yet part of her hoped she would see him. Arman, the stranger whose presence felt familiar in a way she couldn't explain. She sat on the edge of the fountain, slowly opening her journal. Yesterday. The words had returned. Today, she wondered whether they would stay. Her pen hovered above the page. Her heart hesitated. What if yesterday was only temporary? What if the silence comes back? She closed her eyes, breathed in. The wind answered softly. And she began to write again, slowly, steadily, like a river remembering the path back to the sea. Across the square, Arman appeared. He wasn't searching for her. But the moment he saw her, he stopped walking. Not because he recognized her face, but because he recognized the stillness around her. The kind he also carried inside himself. For a while he simply watched. Not intruding, not approaching, just existing in the same quiet morning. Inside his jacket pocket rested the folded note he found yesterday. The words echoed again. "This town remembers those who listen." He ran his thumb across the paper. Yesterday the letter felt like coincidence. Today, it felt like direction. He turned to leave. But the wind shifted, and a loose page slid from Lina's journal, landing near his feet. He bent down, picked it up gently, careful not to crease it. It wasn't a page of writing. It was a sketch. Place, mountains, bridge, and a symbol carved into the stone railing. His breath caught. He knew this bridge. Only one bridge in Vellora had that marking. But he hadn't told anyone, not even himself. 'Cause that bridge was the place where his brother disappeared. He looked up. Lina hadn't noticed the page missing. Her hand continued writing, steady, calm. Arman approached slowly, as if stepping into a moment he wasn't sure he was allowed to enter. He cleared his throat gently. She looked up. Their eyes met. And this time, neither of them looked away. "This page," he said softly. "It fell." She blinked, surprised, then embarrassed. "Oh, thank you," she whispered, taking it carefully. He hesitated. "What is that place?" She glanced at the drawing, then at him. "I don't know," she said slowly. "I've never been there." Her voice lowered. "But I've seen it. In dreams. For weeks." Arman's heartbeat trembled. Not fear. Something else. Recognition. Neither spoke for a while. The wind filled the space for them. Some silences aren't empty. Some silences are conversations. Lina finally broke it. "Have you seen it?" she asked. Arman nodded once. "Yes." She waited for him to continue. He didn't. Instead he simply said, "Would you like to?" Her eyes widened. He wasn't inviting her to sightsee. He was inviting her into something unspoken, something personal, something fragile, and somehow, she felt she was meant to say yes. "I would," she replied softly. The wind stirred again. Not loud, not dramatic, just approving. As if Vellora itself whispered, "Good. Keep going." Neither of them knew that the bridge wasn't only a memory. It was a beginning, and somewhere, someone else in Vellora did not want that bridge to be found. The road toward the mountains felt older than the town itself, as if every stone beneath their feet had carried the weight of countless footsteps before them. No cars, no noise, just wind, and the soft rhythm of two travelers walking side by side, but still strangers in many ways. For the first part of the climb, they didn't speak. Words would have felt clumsy. Sometimes silence isn't a lack of conversation. Sometimes, silence is trust. Lina tightened her grip on her journal. Every step toward the unknown brought questions. Why did she draw this place before ever seeing it? Why did she feel guided here? And why did being near this stranger not feel unsafe, but necessary? Arman glanced toward the edge of the path, where the mountains folded into layers of silver-blue haze. He hadn't walked this route in years. Not since the night everything changed. Not since the night his voice broke in the dark, calling his brother's name, and hearing nothing answer back. He thought he had sealed those memories away. But the wind here remembered. And it brought them back gently. Not to wound him, but to tell him he was not done with them yet. They reached a ridge, where the town below looked small, almost unreal. Lina slowed, placing her hand on a wooden railing. "This place feels familiar," she whispered. Her voice wasn't fearful. It was fragile, like someone touching glass that looked like it might break. Arman nodded slightly. "It does that," he replied quietly. "Some places don't just exist in the world. They exist inside us, before we ever arrive." The bridge appeared slowly, like it wasn't being discovered, but awakened. Stone arch, weathered carvings, the symbol etched into the railing, exactly as Lina had drawn it. Her breath trembled. Her eyes filled. "I've seen this," she whispered. "In my dreams." Arman didn't answer. His hands tightened at his sides. This was not a dream for him. This was a wound he had never allowed to heal. They stepped onto the bridge. The air felt different here. Colder, quieter, as if the world itself held its breath. Lina placed her hand gently over the carved symbol. It feels like someone left something here, she said softly. Something unfinished. Arman closed his eyes. He could still hear his brother's laugh, still see his footsteps disappearing into the fog, and for the first time, he allowed the memory to speak. He was 17, Arman said quietly. My brother. Lina didn't move, didn't interrupt. She listened, fully. He came here that night, said he needed air, said the bridge calmed him. Arman swallowed, his voice, steady but fragile. I came looking for him, but by the time I reached here, he was gone. Not a fall, not a crime. Vanished into silence, and no one ever found out why. I stopped drawing after that, he continued. I stopped living. He glanced toward her. And I came here to forget. Lina's hand moved slowly, resting gently over his. Not dramatic, not romantic, just human. Kind, real. I think, she whispered. You came here to remember. The wind rose gently, not harsh, not cold, comforting, as if the town itself was finally exhaling. Lina's eyes narrowed. Her expression changed. This symbol, she murmured. It isn't decorative. She traced the markings. They're coordinates. Hidden. Encoded in the design. Her voice deepened. Someone wasn't just marking this bridge. They were leaving instructions. Arman stared. I never noticed. You weren't meant to, she replied softly. Until now. The wind shifted again. Leaves trembled. A distant echo traveled along the valley. Something, or someone, was watching. A shadow moved beyond the trees. Unseen, unheard, unwelcome. Because the bridge was not just a memory. It was a doorway. And someone in Vellora did not want that doorway opened. The coordinates carved into the bridge did not point to another mountain or a secret cave. They led back into town, to a place Lina hadn't noticed before. A forgotten house, pressed between two taller buildings, as if time itself had tried to erase it and failed. Arman slowed as they approached. He had passed this street many times. Yet somehow, he had never truly seen this house. Some places don't reveal themselves until you are ready to knock. And tonight, the past was ready to answer. For a moment, no sound, no footsteps, just the faint humming of wind between rooftops. And a latch turned. The door opened. Inside the dark doorway stood an old man. Hair silver, shoulders bent slightly. But his eyes, dark, awake, and far younger than the rest of him. He studied them without fear, without surprise. As if he had been waiting. Come in, he said softly. Not a question, a statement. Like someone finishing a sentence that began years ago. The house smelled of dust and pine oil. Books. Letter scrolls. Museum glass frames. Every inch of space seemed to hold someone's story. Some saved, some hidden, some forgotten. The old man poured tea without asking if they wanted any. People who carry burdened hearts rarely refuse warmth. He set the cups down gently, then leaned back. You've been to the bridge, he said quietly. Not asked, declared. Arman froze. Lina's heartbeat quickened. Yes, she replied. And you found the mark. She nodded. He closed his eyes slowly, as if a memory long locked away had finally found permission to breathe again. The old man's voice softened. I was a teacher here once. Before Vellora forgot my name. He poured more tea. There was a boy, kind, restless, brilliant. The town loved him. But he carried storms inside. Storms no one could see. Arman's fingers tightened slowly around his cup. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The old man continued. He came to me often. Said the bridge made him feel safe. Said the wind there listened better than people did. Arman's breath shattered inside him. His brother, younger, alive, full of light. The room tilted for a moment, but he did not look away. Lina rested her hand quietly on the table, anchoring him, without words. He asked me to teach him maps, the old man said. Coordinates, symbols, hidden messages carved into stone, so only the right eyes would see. Lina whispered, "The carvings aren't decoration." "No," the old man replied gently. "They are breadcrumbs, left by someone who was afraid to disappear, but did not know how to stay." Lina felt something rise inside her. Not fear, recognition. "I didn't imagine this place," she whispered. "I was being guided." The old man nodded gently. "Some places call to those who listen, and some hearts hear each other, even through years." He turned to Arman. "There are things your brother could not say while he was here, so he left them behind, hoping one day someone would follow." Arman swallowed. His voice cracked softly. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" The old man looked down. "Because some people in this town believe silence keeps wounds from reopening." He lifted his gaze. "But wounds kept in silence never heal." A calm stillness settled in the room. Not empty, full, heavy but safe. Lina exhaled softly. "What do the rest of the symbols lead to?" The old man hesitated. His expression shifted. "Not fear. Protection. There are places in Vellora not everyone wants uncovered." His eyes darkened slightly. "And there are men who prefer the past buried." The wind pressed gently against the windows, like a warning, a whisper, reminder. The world outside was listening. He leaned closer. "If you continue this path, you will not only find your answers." His voice lowered. "You will also find the people who spent years hiding them." Arman did not look away. "I've been running from the truth for too long." Lina nodded softly. "So have I." The old man studied them, saw the resolve in their eyes. And finally, he smiled. "Then the next piece of the trail begins at dawn." 'Cause Vellora was not sleeping anymore. And neither was the truth. Morning came softly, as if the town itself hesitated to wake. The mist didn't lift right away. It lingered, holding secrets in the air. Arman and Lina walked in silence through the still sleeping streets, the old archivist's words echoing quietly inside them. Somewhere in this town, pieces of a story waited, pieces of a boy's voice that had never reached its end. They reached the plaza just as the first shop doors opened. The old man was already there, standing beside the stone fountain, holding an old leather satchel against his chest. He turned when he heard their footsteps. There was no greeting, no surprise, only purpose. He placed the parchment on the fountain's edge, unrolled it slowly, and the town unfolded before them. Not like a normal map, not streets, not landmarks, lines, hidden pathways, arrows, symbols woven beneath the surface, like veins beneath the skin of Vellora. Lina traced the ink gently. "These aren't roads," she whispered. "No," the old man replied. "These are places people forget exist." "These markings," Arman said softly. "I've seen them before." He closed his eyes, memory rushing in like cold water. Walls, tunnels, stone corridors beneath a hospital, a doctor's voice echoing down the hall. He was just confused. Young men get overwhelmed. He'll be fine. But he hadn't been fine. And Arman knew it now. The old man's voice cut softly through the memory. "Your brother spent months wandering places the town pretends not to see. Old passageways, abandoned rooms, spaces built for people, now used to store silence." He pointed toward the far end of the plaza. "To reach the next mark, you must start below." Lina felt a chill. "Below what?" The old man paused. His eyes softened and darkened at the same time. "The heart of the town," he said quietly. "The one place everyone visits, But no one looks at. Arman knelt, brushed the dirt away. A faint symbol emerged, the same one carved into the bridge. And the drawing, and the photograph. Lina whispered. He marked another door. The grate creaked as Arman lifted it. Cold air breathed upward from the darkness below. Not threatening, not welcoming, simply waiting. The air smelled of stone and rain. Water dripped softly from somewhere unseen. Their footsteps echoed gently, not loud, but hollow. Lina ran her fingers along the wall. Patterns worn smooth by time. Scratches, not random, intentional. A message in a language made from silence. Arman stopped. His breath tightened. There, etched into the wall, were the same arrowed lines from the map. Deeper, darker, carved by hand. His brother's hand. He pressed his palm against the stone. For a moment, he didn't feel alone. Lina watched him quietly. Love and longing all lived in the stillness of his expression. We're not just following a trail, she whispered. We're walking through. What he couldn't say. Arman nodded slowly. Yes. And for the first time, his voice didn't sound heavy. It sounded brave. The chamber felt unfinished, as if life had once filled it, then vanished mid-sentence. Lina walked forward slowly. Her eyes lifted to the mural. Mountains, wind, bridge, painted in soft pastels. Under it, a child sat alone. She swallowed. This place was meant to be a shelter, she said softly. Not a hiding place, not a prison. Refuge. For those the world didn't understand. The old man's voice drifted gently from behind. It was built long ago, for people who needed quiet, until quiet was taken away from them. Arman turned. Why? The old man's expression carried sorrow. Because silence frightens those who live loudly. A faint crack traced across the wall. Lina followed it with her eyes. To a wooden box tucked behind fallen stones. Dust covered its surface. But the latch was new. Had been here not long ago. Inside, a stack of folded papers. Sketches, coordinates, handwritten thoughts. Half poems, half confessions. Arman lifted one page. The handwriting trembled. If I leave one day, I want someone to find the pieces I couldn't carry. The words didn't break him this time. They steadied him. Because they weren't goodbye. They were a hand reaching forward in time. Lina whispered. He wasn't lost. Arman nodded. He was trying to be found. The old man placed a gentle hand on Arman's shoulder. You are the first to hear him, he said softly. And perhaps the only one who ever could. Because the truth was no longer sleeping. And neither was the past. The world above felt different when they returned. The wind moved gently through the square, as if the town had been listening the whole time. Arman kept the folded sketches pressed against his chest, not tightly, carefully, like something fragile and alive. Lina walked beside him in silence. But it was not an empty silence. It was a silence that knew, a silence that held understanding, instead of fear. The old man paused beside the fountain. This is only the first path, he said softly. Your brother marked more than memories. He marked choices. Moments when he stood on the edge of being seen. Or disappearing. Lina studied the map again. The next symbol did not point downward. Pointed outward. Toward the edge of town. Toward the valley. The bridge. Arman nodded slowly. He went back there, he whispered. And he wanted someone else. To arrive where he could not. The village thinned behind them. The air grew cooler. And the earth beneath their feet changed. From stone. To gravel. To open trail. Lina breathed deeply. The world smelled of pine. And mist. And memory. Arman glanced at the horizon. The mountains stood still. Watching. Like ancient witnesses. But his heart no longer trembled. It didn't feel like walking toward pain anymore. Felt like walking toward truth. They reached the ridge. The path narrowed. And there, stretching across the valley like a ribbon of faded stone, stood the bridge. Quiet, weathered, holding time, the way old hands hold stories. For a moment, no one spoke, because some places do not need introduction. They speak for themselves. Lina felt it before she understood it. This was not a place of endings. It was a threshold, quiet line, between fear and courage, between leaving and staying. Arman stepped forward slowly. His breath steadied. His footsteps didn't echo. They rested, as if the bridge recognized him. Halfway across, he stopped. Etched faintly into the stone railing was the same mark, a symbol, a delicate curve, a line crossing gently through it. Not a warning, not a farewell. Crossroads. Arman ran his fingers across it. A breath he had been holding for years. Finally exhaled. This wasn't the place he wanted to leave, Arman whispered. This was the place. He wanted to be seen. Lina closed her eyes. And for a moment, she could almost hear it. A voice carried by wind. Young, restless, hopeful, not lost, searching. A faint breeze drifted across the bridge. It brushed against Arman's sleeve, like a hand. Not pulling, not holding, just reassuring. He placed one of the folded sketches on the railing. Not to leave it behind, but to acknowledge it, to honor what remained. In the memory, the boy did not look broken. He did not look desperate. He looked like someone asking the world a question no one had yet answered. Lina whispered softly. He wasn't trying to disappear. Arman nodded. He was trying to understand where he belonged. And for the first time, those words did not ache. They healed. The old man stepped to the edge of the bridge. His voice was steady. There is one last thing you should know, he said quietly. Your brother did not walk here alone. Arman turned sharply. What do you mean? The old man hesitated, then pointed toward the far end of the bridge. To understand his journey, you must meet the person who last walked beside him. The figure paused, watching them, not approaching, not retreating, just waiting. The wind fell still. Even the valley seemed to hold its breath. Arman's heart did not race. It steadied, because this was no longer about fear. It was about finishing a conversation that had begun long ago and never found its final word. Lina whispered, "Do you think they know who we are?" Arman nodded softly. "I think they've been waiting." The mist shifted, revealing the outline more clearly. Coat, scarf, a face partially hidden by shadow, but the posture, gentle, apologetic, human, and somewhere deep inside, Arman already knew, this meeting would change everything, not with confrontation, not with blame, but with truth, and truth always finds its way home. 'Cause some bridges do not lead away from the past, they lead into the heart of it, and now, the heart was ready to speak. The figure moved slowly, not out of fear, but out of respect, for the moment that was unfolding. Every step landed gently, measured, careful, as if the bridge itself remembered each footstep. Arman's breath steadied. Lina's heart trembled, not with dread, but with anticipation. 'Cause sometimes, it is not the answer that frightens us. It is the silence before it arrives. The stranger stopped just a few feet away. Not too close. Not distant either. Close enough to be human. Close enough to hold truth. He removed his scarf. His face appeared in the soft evening light. Kind eyes. Tired eyes. The eyes of someone who had carried a memory too long. He spoke first. His voice, gentle. "I knew you would come someday." Arman didn't speak. He didn't have to. His silence was a question. "My name is Yusuf," he said softly. "I was with your brother on his last evening here." The wind moved gently through the valley. Not dramatic, not loud, just present, As if listening, Lina watched Arman carefully. His shoulders did not tense. They softened. "Tell me," Arman said quietly. Not as a demand, as a prayer. Yusuf exhaled slowly. "He came to this town with questions," he said. "But not about endings. About purpose. About belonging. He carried a weight. But it was not despair. It was wonder he didn't know how to hold." Lina closed her eyes. Those words felt true. Not convenient. Not defensive. Honest. Yusuf continued. "He talked about you," he said softly. "About how you saw the world through your camera. And how he wished he could see himself the way you once did." Arman's hands trembled. But he did not look away. In the memory, the younger brother was not broken. He was alive with thoughts. With dreams. Too large for a small world. He said. Yusuf whispered. "Sometimes I feel like a sketch someone forgot to finish." Lina felt tears rise. Not from sadness, but recognition. Yusuf's voice steadied. "I told him. No one is unfinished. We are just still becoming." The flashback dissolved. The mist returned. The bridge listened. Arman swallowed gently. "Then why did he disappear?" he asked softly. Not accusing. Searching. Yusuf nodded. As if he had carried that question for years. "He didn't fall," Yusuf said. "He didn't jump. He didn't choose the edge. He walked back across the bridge." Lina froze. Arman's breathing stopped. "Then where did he go?" he whispered. Yusuf looked toward the valley road. "He said he needed time. He said he would send a sign. When he understood himself." For a moment, no one spoke. 'Cause sometimes, truth is not sharp. It is quiet. And gentle. And heavier than grief. "He left Vellora alive," Yusuf said softly. "He was not running from the world. He was walking toward himself." Arman closed his eyes. A single tear escaped. But it was not pain. It was release. A door inside him, finally opening. Lina stepped forward. "And the letters?" she asked. "The markings?" Yusuf nodded. "He came back, not once but many times. He didn't want to be remembered by sorrow. He wanted to leave guidance. For anyone who felt lost like he did." The puzzle shifted into meaning. Was not a grave. Was a map. A map for hearts. Searching for a path back to themselves. Arman whispered. "Why didn't he tell me?" Yusuf smiled sadly. "Because he thought you already understood. Because he believed that someday you would not chase his shadow. You would walk your own bridge." The words settled. Not like a wound. Like a seed. Lina placed her hand lightly over Arman's. No words. Just presence. The kind that says, "I am here." And means it. Yusuf looked at Lina. He wrote something. "For whoever would find his trail," he said. He reached into his coat. And unfolded a final page. The handwriting. Familiar. Steady. Alive. Arman read silently. "If you are here, you are not lost. You are searching. And searching is a sign of life." Arman closed his eyes. His brother was never a tragedy. He was a traveler. Soul in motion. Yusuf bowed his head gently. "My part in his story ends here," he said. "But yours is still unfolding." He turned and walked slowly back into the mist. Not disappearing. Just continuing. The way journeys do. Arman did not cry. He breathed. For the first time. Fully. The sky above them began to deepen. Evening settling. Like a soft blanket. Lina whispered. "Are you okay?" Arman nodded. "I am not healed. But I am no longer afraid of remembering." And in that moment, Vellora felt warmer. Not because grief had ended. But because truth had finally found a voice. Some bridges are not built to cross distances. They are built cross time. And now, the past no longer chased him. It walked beside him, quietly, gently, like an old friend. Night settled over Vellora like a soft breath, not heavy, not dark, but calm, as if the town itself exhaled after holding a truth too long. The bridge behind them faded into shadow, but what it left inside them remained. Arman and Lina walked slowly along the quiet stone path, neither speaking, not because there was nothing to say, but because the silence finally felt kind. The wind moved gently through the trees, not whispering secrets anymore, just resting. They reached a hill overlooking the valley. A wooden bench stood beneath an old lantern. They sat without thinking about it, as if the place had been waiting for them. For a moment, they simply watched the sky. Stars began to appear, not loud, just patient, like memories returning in a softer way. Arman spoke first. His voice was steady, fragile, honest. "I spent so long thinking his story ended on that bridge," he said. "But tonight," he paused, "I think I finally understand." Lina turned slightly toward him. "What?" she asked softly. Arman looked toward the horizon. "That grief doesn't mean a life has stopped," he said. "It means we cared enough to keep carrying someone with us. Not as a burden, not as a wound, but as a light." Lina's hand rested gently over her journal. She thought of her fiancé, the future they never reached, the letters she never finished. Her heart trembled, not from pain, but from recognition. "I forgot that," she whispered. "For a long time." Arman nodded. "We both did," he said. "But maybe that's why we came here." The memory didn't ache anymore. Glowed, like a candle finally placed in a safe window. Lina wiped her eyes softly. "Sometimes I felt guilty," she said, "for still wanting to live, to travel, to breathe." Her voice shook, as if moving forward meant leaving him behind. Arman shook his head gently. "No," he said. "Moving forward means bringing them with us. But learning to walk again." Her tears no longer felt like grief. They felt like release. The lantern above them flickered. The night breeze grew warmer. The world felt gentler. She wrote, "Grief is not the end of love. It is the echo of it, teaching us how to live again." Her hand didn't tremble this time. Her words felt alive again. Not forced, not fragile, real. Arman leaned back slightly, gazing at the sky. "I always thought healing would feel like forgetting," he said. "But tonight, I think it feels more like permission." "Permission for what?" she asked. He smiled softly. "To keep living," he said. "To keep discovering who we are now, without losing who we were before." The moment didn't rush itself. It settled, like dust finding home in sunlight. They didn't hold hands. They didn't need to. Connection does not always arrive through touch. Sometimes, it arrives through presence, through breath, through the knowledge that for the first time, neither of them felt alone. Lina looked at Arman thoughtfully. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "if we were meant to meet here?" Arman considered the thought. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe we simply arrived at the same place, when our hearts were ready to listen." The wind moved through the grass, not as mystery, not as omen, just as wind, gentle, alive, present. For the first time, Vellora didn't feel like a place of unanswered ghosts. Felt like a beginning, not a dramatic one, quiet one, the kind that grows slowly, patiently, like roots finding soil. Lina closed her journal. She smiled softly. "Tomorrow," she said, "I want to walk through the old market street again. The stones, the rooftops, the alleys." Arman nodded. "And I want to follow more of my brother's marks," he said. "Not to search for the end of his trail, but to understand why he left it behind." Their journeys were no longer about pain. They were about becoming. Together, but also individually, balanced, respectful, true. The lantern dimmed. The stars brightened. The The world felt wider and safer. Lina whispered, "Arman." He turned gently. Yes. She didn't confess love. She didn't cross boundaries. She simply said, "Thank you for listening." He smiled softly. "Thank you for staying." And somehow, those words meant more than anything else. Some journeys begin with questions. Others begin with healing. But in Vellora, two travelers had finally discovered something deeper. Not answers, not certainty, but courage. Courage to remember. Courage to feel. Courage to begin again. And as the night settled gently across the valley, their story was only just beginning.